Thank you for coming. This is a presentation from two visiting scientists from the Agricultural Research Service of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. First, they're going to start just talking a little bit about the service that they work for, so I'll let them do that. I'll introduce them personally, actually. So first is Dr. Marcus Kehrli, and he's the director of the National Animal Disease Center of the USDA Agricultural Research Service, and has over 34 years of experience in infectious and emerging disease research. From 2003 until starting as the center director in May of 2013, Dr. Kehrli was a research leader of the Virus and Prion Disease Research Unit at the National Animal Disease Center in Ames, Iowa. We're leading a research program covering bacterial, viral, and prion diseases in wildlife, cattle, and swine. Before that, he worked as a research investigator on the pursuit of therapeutic solutions for livestock diseases. And his research career at the USDA Animal Disease Center began in 1982, investigating immunosuppression and bovine mastitis until 1998, when he joined Pfizer Animal Health. He's a collaborating professor at Iowa State University in the departments of animal science, veterinary microbiology, and preventative medicine in the immune biology interdepartmental program. Primarily, research expertise is infectious diseases of cattle and swine. He has 4 degrees from Iowa State University, including a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine and a PhD in immune biology, and an honorary doctorate from the University of Liège, Belgium, Faculty of Veterinary Medicine. He's co-authored or authored over 160 publications in reviewed scientific journals and contributed to numerous book chapters and monographs, and holds 4 U.S. patents. He's a past president of the American Association of Veterinary Immunologists and has served on key committees for dairy science, mastitis research, swine health. Dr. Kehrli has received many outstanding achievement awards, including for research in dairy science, mastitis abatement, dairy cattle physiology, and for the discovery and development of a DNA PCR test to eradicate bovine leukocyte adhesion deficiency, and in recognition of the ARS Research Response Team's effort on the 2009 H1N1 pandemic influenza virus. As you might expect, he's known as a highly distinguished alumnus of Iowa State University College of Veterinary Medicine. He'll speak first, and then I'll introduce the other.
Okay. Well, thank you. This presentation can be very informal. If you want to interrupt and ask questions as we go along, please do so. Don't be afraid to ask. We are federal employees of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and as Rachel indicated, we work for the Agricultural Research Service, so we are into research. Why we are here in Russia this past week is to attend by invitation, the 7th International Veterinary Congress, which was held in Ufa, Russia. This is my second time in Russia. I attended this same meeting, which was the 5th International Congress 2 years ago, when it was held entirely here in Moscow. There's a companion animal portion of this conference that is only held, I guess, in Moscow. One of the interesting things of this meeting is there were invited speakers and participants from over 20 countries. So it does have an international flavor. And many of the chief veterinary officers of the Russian Federation and some of the other country participants were in the meeting. And many internationally renowned scientists that were brought in to speak on diseases that they were specializing in. Our host was Sergey, and I will not attempt to pronounce his last name, but some of you know Sergey. He is the executive director of the Russian Veterinary Association, and he was instrumental in having us come, and our travel was financed through the Russian Veterinary Association. Dr. Kelly Lager gave a talk on Seneca virus A research that he's been doing. It's a virus that's emerged, and he'll tell you that story. And I gave a very basic presentation on how to assess health problems for dairy cows, health problems that actually affect the quality of the milk that they produce, a disease known as mastitis. How our relationships with these folks began actually goes back many years, and Kelly can give you a more accurate history than I can, but there are two ISTC programs that in the last 15 years that we were still part of. That program, as I understand it, has gone away, but it was a very productive program. Dr. Lager had one that involved research on the control of influenza A virus with colleagues at the Ivanovsky Virology Institute here in Moscow. And then Dr. Andy Chung, who is now retired, a virologist at our center, he had a collaboration with the Institute of Molecular Biology and Biochemistry in Kazakhstan. And that project was looking at various botanical or plant products that might enhance cell culture for virus propagation. That was a very interesting project, and but I'd say this one up here has had a more long-term, impactful relationship with our center, probably largely because of the people that were involved in the collaboration, just a better chemistry between them. So this is approximately a 2,000-foot view of our research facility at the location that we have in Ames, Iowa. So we are in the middle of the country, and we have brand new facilities, and this picture actually was taken when some of it was still under construction, so you can see black dirt. This time of year, Iowa is turning very green, and it's some of the best farmland in the world. This is Interstate 35, runs north-south from basically Minneapolis, St. Paul, all the way down through San Antonio, and I forget where it ends. Dallas, okay. It dies somewhere down in Texas. So that kind of, you can see our facility as you're driving by on Interstate 35. We have a brand new laboratory facility, which is right here in the center. Our old facility is located up here. It is now completely deconstructed. We don't say demolished. Everything was recycled. We also have a brand new biocontainment building, which I'll show you in another facility. But one of the key things, we combined 3 different USDA centers. The center that we work for, NADC, or the Animal Disease Center, with the National Veterinary Services Laboratory and the Center for Veterinary Biologics. Those are 2 APHIS USDA centers. NVSL does diagnostics and disease surveillance. They are an OIE reference lab for over 40-some diseases. I've lost count. And then the Center for Veterinary Biologics is a regulatory agency. They regulate all vaccines that are approved for use in animals in the United States as a result of our Serum and Toxin Act. So I am the director of the NADC. Dr. Bev Schmidt is the director of NVSL. And then the Center for Veterinary Biologics is directed by Dr. Byron Ripke. When we first opened our facility in 1961, we were all one group. But approximately in 1973, NVSL was spun off and diagnostics and surveillance became separate from research. In 1996, the Center for Veterinary Biologics was officially formed, again as a spin-off of a couple of different groups within what was then APHIS, and so they entirely focus on the regulatory aspects. And this is just an org chart. Of course, above the secretary would be the president. We're hoping that in a matter of a few hours we have a new Secretary of Agriculture sworn in. It's a big concern at our center to get that done. Deputy Secretary, and then an Undersecretary for Research, Education, and Economics is where the Agricultural Research Service falls. And then APHIS, they fall under the Undersecretary for Marketing and Regulatory Programs. So we are as different from our 2 APHIS centers in our one facility as perhaps the State Department is from USDA. Very different practices, different missions, and many supporting structures that are uniquely oriented towards supporting the different research and regulatory and diagnostic missions. We are pretty unique in the world. There is another USDA facility at Plum Island, which is off the tip of Long Island, or you can actually see it from Connecticut. That is a joint facility that is now operated by the Department of Homeland Security. But the actual work that is done there is directed by either APHIS, so the Diagnostic Foreign Animal Disease Laboratory is at Plum Island, and the director of NVSL in Ames oversees the work that's done there for diagnostics. There's also research on foot and mouth disease done by ARS, as well as classical swine fever, and we're trying to get a little work started up on African swine fever. But around the world, there's very few facilities outside the United States. Frederick Loeffler Institute in Reims, Germany. Geelong, Australia has a facility. Both of these have both biocontainment level 3 and 4 capabilities. Pirbright also has BSL-3 capabilities, level 3, and then Winnipeg has level 3 and level 4 animal research capabilities. The level 4 and leap 3 differences are level 4, the scientists and the workers in with the pathogens that are infecting the animals will wear what we refer to as a space suit, but it's a suit that protects the scientists, the people working with infected animals from becoming infected themselves, because by definition, they would be zoonotic diseases or of unknown zoonotic potential. These are some images taken from inside our BSL-3 Ag biocontainment building, which was constructed about 10 years ago. And our actual first experiment is depicted here in a contrived picture, of course, because the photographer couldn't be in there. But that was with the 2009 H1N1 pandemic virus. And if you recognize this handsome individual, he's sitting over here in a suit, wearing full face respirators, and they're simulating the swabbing of the nose of a pig that may have been infected. What's unique about our facilities in the world is that we can also put into BSL-3 Ag biocontainment of bison, deer, elk, and everything down to poultry. And it's a very unique facility because we designed it specifically for that. And I'll just touch briefly on why we're doing research on bison, because they're not a big economic part of the ag sector, but they do present some risks to the ag sector that we need to understand and control better. So this is the outside of the BSL-3 Ag building, about 150,000 square feet, 22 different animal rooms of varying sizes. We can house 28 bison in 4 different rooms out of those 22. So that gives you a sense for the scale of the building. It is very large. The air that goes into those rooms is HEPA filtered. The room then gets 2 sets of HEPA filters as the air leaves the room, single pass. Very expensive building to operate. All the liquid waste is autoclaved, and the carcasses is one way out for the animals. That's after humane euthanasia, and the animals can be either rendered, or if necessary, we do have protocols to incinerate them. But there are 2 renders in the building. This building here is a level 2 biocontainment building that we also opened as part of our modernization process. It's about 100 animal pens, and it's only about 1/3 the size of this building, but it only constructed to BSL-2 containment levels. Our BSL-3 Ag building, these 4 pens up here represent the space for up to 28 bison or adult cattle. We have 3 pens here that we can house white-tailed deer or elk, and they have specialized handling equipment, chutes that will safely and humanely hold the deer. They're very dangerous animals to do research with. We raise our own deer. We begin fawning our doe herd here in about a month. The building is set up so that the red part of it represents only about 20% of the building, but that's where the animals are located. The basement is where all the plumbing is, and the interstitial spaces up and above here are the filtration banks to purify the air so that we do not contaminate the environment around our facility. And then the equipment that drives the air in and out. The building is quite well built. We heard some figures that would withstand a direct hit from a tornado, but I'm sure there's a tornado big enough that it might damage it. We are building a brand new facility in the United States to replace the Plum Island facility, and now is being located in Manhattan, Kansas, adjacent to the Kansas State University facilities that they have. That building is being built substantially more durable, but its level of biocontainment at Plum Island is no greater than what we have in this building. But the building in Manhattan will have level 4 biocontainment. We have no current research needs for it, but the political decision, I guess, was made such that we did not want to be dependent on another country in a situation where we needed to do research and to be able to get in. And the level 4 work is extremely expensive research to do because it's very time-consuming and tedious to do. So just some more area views. The important picture here, this was during construction, so the side of the building has not been enclosed yet. But you'll see these 5 large vertical tanks. Those collect all of the liquid waste coming out of our biocontainment facilities, both laboratories and animal facilities. We autoclave through high-pressure steam approximately 75 to 100,000 gallons of liquid waste every single day. And so that accounts for a major portion of our $6.5 million annual utility bill. You don't want to get that at home. So again, just where we're located right here in the middle of the United States, and we primarily work on endemic, economically important diseases of the United States. One of the things that separates us from Plum Island. And they range from respiratory diseases to mastitis, enteric pathogens that may or not even cause disease in animals, but could be a food safety concern. Reproductive diseases, both viral and bacterial. We do work on prion diseases. It's pronounced prion by Stanley Prusiner, one of the 3 people that received a Nobel Prize on prion research. He was the one that coined the word, and he has a running battle with the British. No competition for me, but the British pronounce it prion, and the guy who coined the word always points out that it's prion. So it's kind of funny if you go to some of the prion meetings to hear him talk about it. We do research on BSE, which is widely known as mad cow disease, chronic wasting disease, and scorpion sheep. We focus on the atypical forms, or what are believed to be spontaneously occurring forms. There's no current evidence of any foodborne spread of BSE in the United States, and the epidemic that occurred in England and parts of Europe has basically subsided. But there are sporadic cases that appear in older animals around the world, and we've had 3 of those cases emerge in the United States, one of which includes a genetic form that is what we call an ortholog or a parallel to the most common genetic form of CJD in humans. So that's some very long-term research. We call it our ripe old age experiment. And we expect to have some animals that begin to come down with BSE that were offspring, and first and second generation offspring of the cow that had that genetic mutation in 2006. So this is our org chart. We have very large support groups for our animal care support, as well as a facility engineering unit that all are being run by ARS. So ARS provides all the animal care and the facility operations support for both the research centers and the 2 APHIS centers. The APHIS centers provide us IT support, some administrative support, shipping and receiving, and our safety, security, and select agent and occupational health and nurse and library services. So we share the operations. We work on a wide range of diseases, as I mentioned. This is just a list of some of the vaccines that we're working on at our facility. And since you captured it on video, I guess you can use that as a cheat sheet on the final exam here later tonight. But a wide range of different types of research, and all of our efforts are to obtain more efficacious vaccines than what are currently available. And some of these vaccine projects are multiple pathogens involved. There's a spirochete disease called digital dermatitis, or hairy heel wart. It appears to be multifactorial, and it causes one primary cause of lameness in ruminants, in both beef and dairy herds, and it is also now affecting wild cervids in the northwestern part of the United States. So if we can figure that one out, it would be very valuable. Dr. Steve Olson, one of your colleagues here, knows Steve. He's the research leader of our bacterial disease of livestock research unit, so he oversees all the brucella, TB, spirochetal, and Johne's disease research. And just why we work with bison is because the bison in Yellowstone National Park are infected with it, and we're trying to develop vaccines to control brucellosis in our wildlife species, because we have eradicated it from our livestock species, which is important for export of our products, beef and pork. But because the bison are infected, they tend to share it with the elk in the region, and the elk outnumber the bison by a large number in the greater Yellowstone Basin, and the bison commingle with cattle on ranches in the area, and we'll see occasional spillover of brucella. So we do have a vaccine that will work in bison to prevent brucellosis. It's a reproductive disease that will cause abortion. However, there's a lot of politics around it, and thus far the National Park Service has not allowed us to proceed with vaccinating the bison. There's about 5,500 head of bison in the park. The park has a carrying capacity of only about 3,500. In nature, that means that there would be periodic epidemics and a lot of die-off. But they removed the wolf, as many of you know, from that area many, many years ago, so they lost a major predator of bison. They did reintroduce him, but the balance is still out of balance. We have been working with a process for ballistic delivery of a vaccine using biobullets. Right now we're in a mode where we have to go back and revisit some of that because the delivery process is damaging the biobullet and we're not getting as good a vaccine. But if you put a needle into the bison and vaccinate them, it works quite well. We have an even bigger problem with the elk. Their immune system is extremely different from bison. The bison immune system is different than a cow, but it's similar to a cow. The vaccines that work in cattle and in bison do not work in elk, and we do not understand that. We have just recently completed sequencing the entire genome of bison, and we are beginning the process to sequence the genome of elk to see if we can understand the genetic basis for why they are so susceptible to this and why our vaccines do not work. So a lot of basic research that hopefully will eventually lead to applied solutions. Dr. Crystal Loving is our research leader of the Pre-Harvest Food Safety and Enteric Diseases Unit, and someone had asked earlier about antimicrobial resistance work. This team has several people that are looking at some of the metagenome in the enteric tract, or all the genetics of everything that's in our gut, and that is not native to the host. So trying to understand how antibiotic resistance develops, how it changes, the impact of in-feed antibiotics, how they work. We're trying to understand some of what's going on before, during, and after use of antibiotics. And hopefully, if we can understand how antibiotics work, we can find alternatives that do the same thing, but that don't cause antibiotic resistance emergence. We also work with E. coli, the S-Tech strains, which for you've probably heard of the E. coli 0157 strains, first reported by the Jack in the Box exposure incident. We're trying to find vaccines to eliminate how that E. coli survives in cattle. It causes no disease in cattle, but it can colonize them, and if the feces contaminates the meat harvest in the slaughterhouse, then you have a potential serious problem. And then we also have a team that's working on Salmonella and Campylobacter, trying to find ways of reducing colonization of that in pigs and turkeys. Dr. Eduardo Casas is another research leader that we have, and they work on mastitis, and then two major categories of respiratory disease, or bacterial and viral causes of pneumonia in cattle, both dairy and beef cattle. And as you can see, there's a long list of pathogens that we're working on. We do have some exciting new vaccines on the way, but it takes years to get through the regulatory process. But we have a couple of scientists working on Mannheimia and Pastorella. I've lost track, but I think they have close to 20 patents, and just about every vaccine manufacturer in the United States is at their door trying to license one of their vaccines, which is an interesting situation to be in. But the beauty of their vaccines is that they are given orally, which is very easy to use in large production settings. And then Dr. Kehrli he'll be talking about some of the research he does, but I'm just going to give a very high view of it here. He has one project team that's focused on swine influenza, which, as you know, is a zoonotic potential to it, and then other emerging diseases of swine that are virus. We also have a team in his unit that focuses on some of the bacterial infections and how they co-infect with the viruses. And this team is also looking at ways to find alternatives to antibiotics, both vaccines and biotherapeutics, that would help reduce the impact of bacterial disease. They have one small effort that they're doing with MRSA, or the methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, which has actually been rather revealing in that they're finding that the genetic signatures of the MRSA isolates that colonize pigs, the genetics is different than those that cause problems in human community-acquired or hospital-acquired MRSA cases. So some good solid evidence coming up that you can't point at the pig as the cause. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the transmissible spongiform encephalopathies, or the prion diseases. So when I talk to various groups, we often get three questions, and I just thought I would try to head them off at the pass. How do we decide what we do research on? How do we disseminate our results to our stakeholders, which includes everybody who eats any meat product to the farmers that produce it, and everyone in between? And then what collaborators do we have? Our research is congressionally mandated. We have direct line item funding from Congress. So you can find a code of federal regulations authorizing everything that we do research on at some point in the history of U.S. government. We have an Office of National Programs headquartered in Beltsville, Maryland, and they make sure that of the various ARS locations across the United States, we do not duplicate any of your tax dollars in doing that research. The scientists will propose a plan of research. It gets approved by the Office of National Program and a concept, and then it goes out for a scientific peer review process. And we do this once every 5 years. At the end of the 5 years, a report is written on the impact of our work. Were we successful? Did we make progress? If the answer is no and no, that money can be redirected and put towards another effort if the scientists fail. As a general rule, our location has excelled and is perceived as one of the top research facilities in the United States, if not the world. So the review process is very critical and it's very time consuming, but it serves to meet a mandate from Congress that we undergo peer review. We have very many different stakeholders from various veterinary groups, producer groups, other federal agencies. We have done research for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Food Safety Inspection Service, APHIS, the Environmental Protection Agency, the FDA, and not listed on here, we do some research for the Department of Naval Research on dolphins, which they use these dolphins to protect our ports, and we have a scientist who's been highly successful at making reagents to study the health of dolphins, and he's really worked out a good process to do that, and they keep supporting his work on that. He also works on bovine respiratory disease and is making good progress with that as well. So, and then we also have some work that's been funded by the Department of Defense, trying to understand what made the 1918 Spanish flu isolate so dangerous. And we had some research in pigs about certain types of vaccine combinations and ways of vaccinating pigs where you actually could see enhancement of disease in pigs. And they wanted to understand if there were any parallels with that research, so they funded some research with our facility on that. But the big thing is, because funding is short, we only have a budget of just under $33 million a year for research that also helps to operate the facility. They have to be economically important diseases. We get our research out to our stakeholders in many, many, many ways. We publish about 110 peer-reviewed scientific publications per year. That may not mean much if you're not doing science, but it's a large amount of publication, and it's all peer-reviewed. There's nothing that we do that we do not publish. Everything is designed to be studied and written up and published. We give scientific presentations around the world, and part of why Kelly and I are here today. We give meetings, presentations with other federal agencies, pharmaceutical and vaccine companies, popular press, to get to our producers and consumers. We have internet websites, podcasts, and webinars that we put out. We have scientists that serve on many producer and veterinary group committees, which is very important because we're hearing what's happening on the farms and in veterinary practice. And we host a lot of meetings where we invite people in and support their efforts and try to keep them up to date on our research progress. And we have many, many informal relationships with veterinarians, producers, other researchers and diagnostic labs around the world. We have a lot of collaborators. They range from universities next door to us with Iowa State University to universities outside of the United States. And many of them are very highly productive, long-term collaborations, which is great. We work with just about any company that is interested in producing products for veterinary medical use in the United States. And so we have basically all of the vaccine manufacturers on this list. The National Pork Board and ARF is the Alpaca Research Foundation. Alpaca are a hobby stock in the United States, but they can be infected with viruses that affect cattle. And one of them is a bovine viral diarrhea virus, and BVD virus, after it got into the alpaca, has adapted to them, but it still poses a risk to spill back into cattle. So they actually funded some vaccine research to understand how they might better control it in the alpaca. And then we have many government collaborations and global partners, including Russia and the United Kingdom. And I myself participate with a group of high containment laboratory directors annually, and that team gets together to discuss best practices for operating and managing a biocontainment facilities, more from an operational point of view than a scientific point of view, but it also opens up opportunities for collaborations between scientists at our centers. Some major accomplishments. One is first attenuated live swine influenza virus vaccine has been field tested, and I talked with the company that licensed this vaccine that was invented by some of our scientists, including this handsome gentleman over here in the black suit, Dr. Kehrli, a vaccine for swine influenza that's more efficacious than any of the vaccines currently on the market in the United States or around the world for that matter. It was a co-invention with St. Jude's Children's Hospital and Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York. It was licensed to Baron Greenbaum, Vetmedica, and they're expecting CDB approval any day now. And I had that verbatim from a key person at the company about a week ago. The other thing, we had a first FDA approval of an immune restorative for livestock that was approved just a little over a year ago. It was based on original research conducted at the NADC clear back in the mid-1980s and 1990s. The product is GCSF, which has long been used in human medicine to restore the immune system of cancer patients that have received chemotherapy. But it also helps to restore the immune system of dairy cows around calving time, where they're naturally immune suppressed. And it will reduce the incidence of mastitis in the first month of lactation by 28 to 30%. It's been approved in at least 43 countries around the world, including the entire 28 countries in the EU. It's truly an alternative to antibiotics, and not only does it restore the immune system and boost their health, it actually reduces antibiotic usage. So it's the first of its kind. The other thing is, as I mentioned, we have a team that's been working on vaccines for Mannheimia hemolytica and Pasteurella metastasis, and ruminant bacterial pathogens, and they have a product that's now on the market based on the work, but this product is not their best one. There will be more in the future. So with that, this is what I look at when I walk in from where I park my pickup truck every morning, and this is our brand new facility, our labs that are level 3 on the 3rd floor. We have 2 separate towers, and then the level 2 labs, there's a large basement under this that we have a small animal vivarium and an aquaculture tank that APHIS uses for evaluating vaccines and certain diagnostic support. We do not do aquaculture research at our location, but ARS does at other locations around the United States. We are celebrating our 56th anniversary this year, and I deliberately made this slide. We are the National Animal Disease Center. There's no state that looks like any of the shapes of these. We just happen to be located in Ames, Iowa. So with that, any questions?
Give some examples of your collaboration with Russia, especially recent projects. You mentioned Russia as one of the global partners.
Right, so that was the work that Kehrli and Dr had been doing, and it was on influenza. And it was actually easier to do some high-path avian influenza research here in Russia at the time than it was in the United States. And so that was a unique opportunity to gain some insights on high-path AI. And Kehrli can give you more details on that. The publications on that work, I think have only been in Russian that were out, but that was the main focus of it. Yes?
I'm sorry, any of your vaccines approved in Russia?
Yeah, that's a great question. Were any of our vaccines approved in Russia?
And how is our relationships with Russia?
Yeah.
Registering, yeah.
Yes. So I don't understand the registration process in Russia. Okay. But I do think one of the challenges that we have is that, as you can imagine, many companies are working on vaccines for the same things that we do. And if they already have something in their pipeline, they have too much money invested to try to start over with a new one. So let's say you have a vaccine at a company that I run. I may have been working on a product for 3 years. If you come to me with a new vaccine and it's for the same pathogen, you're going to have to prove to me that it's way better than anything that I already have. Because I may have spent millions of dollars in working towards regulatory approval,
and I would have to start all of that over with a new vaccine. So that is a problem that we have run into with several of our vaccines, and most of the major companies are working, doing their own research and development. They can't rely on government to always be the one that comes up with something. But that said, I have wondered why we couldn't try to license some of our vaccines for use, to get registered for use in Russia. Because if no one in the United States wants to pick up and get one of our vaccines approved, maybe it could be approved in another country. And I don't understand why there would be any barriers to that. I've asked that of our food chain in USDA with our technology transfer office. They say it's possible to do. So one example 2 years ago that I thought we might do was our salmonella vaccine, because it works in several species, pigs, cattle, and turkeys, one vaccine. And it protects against several different types of salmonella. But that's recently been licensed by a company that had not been into veterinary medicine very much before. So who knows whether or not they will try to bring it forward into Russia, but I see no reason why we couldn't. Good question, though. Yes?
About international cooperation, you mentioned a lot of countries, but what is the system to support financially this cooperation? State grants or partners?
So there's several different ways that our international collaborations have been funded. The ones that started with ISTC was State Department funded. We have a couple of collaborations with the University of Cambridge. One of them we are funding because there's a scientist there that's doing a very unique type of analysis of how the immune system sees viruses and how vaccines might be better designed to protect against an evolving virus such as influenza. And the tools that she provides, Nicola Lewis, is something that is better for us to just collaborate with her and fund her work, and rather than us recreating a wheel. So if someone else has already invented the wheel, there's no need to reinvent it. And so that's another example. The other collaboration we have with the University of Cambridge scientists is actually funded by a private company, a vaccine company, that one of the ones that was on that list, an international vaccine company, is funding research at the Cambridge Institute that's funding some of our work, where they were doing the laboratory work in England, and we did the animal vaccine work, proving that it actually worked here at our facility in Ames, Iowa. So that was a three-way collaboration. So there's been many different types of collaborations. We've been invited to participate in EU grants to do research on various topics. That has been much more difficult in the post-9/11 world because of all the security clearances that are required to conduct research in our level 3 labs. And some of the EU proposals have been, if we're going to participate and receive funding, we have to be able to let their scientists come in and use our facilities on a moment's notice. That is impossible. Absolutely. I mean, we take 6 to 9 months to get a security clearance, and on individuals in the United States, it takes longer on foreign nationals. But very much depends on the country. It's crazy. It needs to be more efficient.
How do you estimate this country now take or leading position on this struggle for animal disease?
I didn't understand your question.
This country keeps leading position now.
Keeps the leading position?
Keeps leading position, yes. Or even percentage. Like example, who more make discovering on this antibacillus, antivirus, something.
Who's making the most advances?
Yes, most advances. So.
Well, there's many ways to measure that, and I don't know of a perfect one. There are countries that are leading on certain diseases, but for example, tuberculosis. We're doing TB research in white-tailed deer because it's in our white-tailed deer that got infected from cattle that we imported from a country south of us many, many years ago. That is a problem because we have to come up with a vaccine for wild deer. England has a problem because of a wild animal with TB in England. New Zealand has a problem because they're a different wild animal that's infected with TB. So each country has their unique problems. Some have eradicated some diseases. I know a big concern in Russia is bovine leukemia virus. It is a concern for me in our country because I believe it's an insidious virus that weakens the immune system, and almost no veterinary diagnostic lab considers it the cause of being why an animal gets cold to the slaughterhouse. But it's there, and we know it weakens the immune system, even without causing the classical lymphoma. So, if you look at the number of patents filed overall in medicine, the United States leads the world. It used to be Germany, but that changed when they went to socialized medicine. The incentive for the pharmaceutical companies changed. There was actually a thesis paper on that topic published out of Harvard 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But that was an interesting read to me because you need incentives for discovery. And you get new products coming from companies, you get them from universities, you get them from government-funded laboratories. And most of the easy diseases to control were solved with some of the simpler vaccines. But we've only eradicated 2 diseases through human efforts in the history of mankind. One was smallpox, and the other was rinderpest. And they both depended on a modified live vaccine. And I would say that both had their challenges, but rinderpest, because it infected different types of animal species, that was a huge challenge. As you know, we've recently eradicated that in the world. So how we could move forward globally, it just takes an awful lot of money. And within the United States, the NIH budget is about 2,000 times greater than the USDA budget for animal health research. So there's a disproportionate balance of funding. And that, when the pandemic broke, USDA got only a decimal fraction of the total funding that went into the pandemic, or they blamed the swine industry for it. So that's a real challenge that we face. And that's not unique to the United States, that's around the world.
European in interest other country, for example, South America and Africa. They damage laboratory like you. What can your laboratory in interest of other countries, particularly Africa and South America?
So in terms of collaborations, if I understand your question, our research support.
Direct work.
Yeah. So in terms of direct work in Africa, virtually none. But we do provide some oversight and advisory capacity for some of the veterinary research and diagnostic facilities from a biosafety perspective. We've had individuals from our lab go into Africa in the last 2 years for that effort, and that was through a biosafety program. Only as any of the diseases that we work on, if they're present in those 2 countries, would they benefit from our research just like people in the United States. But our research is funded by taxpayers, and the first priority is the people who you get the money from. The situation in South America, I would suggest we have had collaborating scientists from Brazil through Embrapa, which is the equivalent of USDA ARS APHIS in Brazil. And we have had interactions with them, and they have provided us insights. They've spent time in our laboratories getting training, and then they go back and work in their own country. One of the big values of a meeting like what we've been at is that if you can target a disease in the country where it's located, and from my view, before it gets into the United States, that's where we need to control the disease. Because some of these diseases are very difficult. And here in Russia, they're experiencing African swine fever. We hope that never gets into the United States because it is very, very difficult to remove that from your country. So, if we're working on it because it's present in the United States, it will benefit those countries. But they may not be the biggest disease challenges that they might face, because we do not have foot-and-mouth disease in the United States, and we're not allowed legally to even work with foot-and-mouth disease virus at our facility. And that's due to federal law by Congress. before they move the Plum Island facility to Manhattan, that law will be required to be changed. So those are some reasons that like foot-and-mouth disease, we do not work on. Yes?
It's really what, say you have like 100 brilliant kids, right? And they are to become scientists in some day. They live in Iowa, right? So what would you put, what kind of, say, animal disease they are going to be tackling?
So our future scientists, what will they be tackling?
It's not necessarily your future scientists, but 100 brilliant scientists, if you had a wish for them, if you could order them to conduct some research, what kind of solution should they produce?
Well, if I had infinite funding, which I don't, and I had,
intellectual power.
but if I had that much intellectual power, every disease that we had that I listed here, I put them to work. Because we solve those, then we can go to the next set. But those are the most economically important diseases facing livestock producers and poultry producers in the United States that we work on. And our facility represents roughly half of the animal health research budget of the United States. So there are other locations across the United States that work on chicks, anaplasmosis, things like that, but I think we're working on the most important diseases, and until we can eradicate them, that's where the brain power needs to be focused. We're also giving a lot of brain power in the area of bioinformatics and computational biology, trying to understand how the immune system sees these pathogens. And our most advanced work in that area is on swine influenza virus, and we're probably even ahead of what they do in human medicine for human influenza. Yes, please.
Yes.
There are differences between drugs for pets or those for any species. For one species, one drug, for another species, another drugs. There are differences between drugs. For example, dogs have one disease has the same disease. Drugs for those drugs for pets is drugs different.
So at our facility, we do no research on dog or cat. None. But absolutely, cattle, sheep, pigs all have different diseases. And so that's why we work on such a variety of different pathogens. We don't work on so many drugs. We work more on vaccines than we do on drugs. The drugs require pharmaceutical companies that have millions and millions of different chemical entities, chemical molecules, and having worked for Pfizer Animal Health, there are no government or university scientists that can compare with what the pharmaceutical world has. If you look at what Merck and Zoetis now, or what Pfizer, they have millions of chemicals that could be potential drugs. And I don't see universities and government labs ever being able to compete with that rich resource. It's not that they couldn't do it, they don't have access to the drugs. I don't know if I completely answered your question, but the diseases we work on are focused on the individual host species. And one advantage we have is if we're doing work on pig disease or cow disease, that's the animal that we studied, and we don't waste much time going through a mouse. Because a mouse isn't going to predict. Lucy, you have a question?
Yes, so I saw you have some collaborations with FDA. I'm curious, how do you, two questions. How do you determine whose research, who owns the research, USDA or FDA? And also, how much collaboration, I guess is a secondary question, do you enable through those programs, those subdivisions, that it impacts the food supply? So that's your benefit, I'm in the US food industry. So these are the guys that help, secure the food supply for the people. And I'm curious more on that.
So from an intellectual property point of view,
and maybe not just IP, but who works on it.
so if if we see that there's people that are listed here, we've had collaborations with the Centers for Disease Control where they made a virus and we evaluated it in pigs. And we've got, I don't know if it's been accepted yet, but we did research on reassortant viruses between the 2009 pandemic and an H5N1 high path AI isolate because they were very worried that that reassortment might occur in nature. We needed to understand what it would do in pigs and would it change its dynamics as a zoonotic. So we have that submitted for publication right now. There was no intellectual property. We co-authored the publications with those folks. And the work, collaboration, they funded it. And we did the work because we could do the work in pigs and they could not. With the FDA, there's been a range of type of collaborations with them. Sometimes it was only consulting. When they found that there was a cell line used for vaccine manufacturing, not for veterinary medicine, but it was contaminated with a certain virus, they consulted with one of our scientists on how to get it out of their cell line. And he actually ended up just providing them with a cell line that was free of that particular virus. There have been other examples, Food Safety Inspection Service. They have funded a few small projects. Sometimes it's just joint effort. They give us access to samples out of a slaughterhouse when we're looking for current isolates circulating in U.S. livestock. APHIS funds a lot of work with us, research work, and often those are joint publications. It's rare that any of those result in intellectual property, but they're typically solving a very immediate problem that APHIS is facing from a disease surveillance point of view. I don't know if that answers your question or not. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so focused on the IP. I feel like this would be shared, and whoever did the bulk of the research would just file for this IP,
Right.
but it's all owned by the U.S. government, right?
it's
So,
right, and sometimes you can't patent it
correct.
because it may be prior arted or too obvious. But Wildlife Services funds a lot of work with us, and those may be collaborations, or they may supply us materials that we then do the research with. So a wide range of types of interactions. I probably should let Dr. Lager go, but one last question.
It's still streptomycin used now,
So,
or it's become old-fashioned.
yeah, streptomycin is still available,
Really?
but the way we've eradicated has been through vaccination, tested, slaughter. So with the vaccines, we find them more efficacious. We actually had a scientist at our facility, Bram Mamitaj, from Armenia, that did research with us for about 5 years.
Against tuberculosis, which kind of medication?
For TB, we do not treat that in the United States. Test and slaughter. Yeah, and we are trying to find a vaccine for the white-tailed deer, but other regions where TB is broken out in wildlife, they were controlled by test and slaughter, just eradicate the population actually, and depopulate the region. But we're in northeast Michigan, where white-tailed deer are currently infected, the state of Michigan chose not to depopulate the white-tailed deer. I don't set policy, but I think the other states have all eradicated it when they depopulated, and Michigan has not. And I think they just had another beef herd become infected with TB from the white-tailed deer just last week. Okay. Rachel, thank you for your attention.
Very quickly introduce Dr. Kehrli Lager. He's the research leader for the virus, and I guess I just learned how to pronounce prion disease of Livestock Research Unit at the National Animal Disease Center in Ames, Iowa. He received his veterinary degree from the University of Missouri in 1988 and began working in mixed animal practice in Kansas City, Missouri. However, interest in research that developed during his days in veterinary school and combined with previous experience working with swine led him to join the swine virology research project at the NADC in 1989. His interests are in the areas of pathogenesis of virus-induced diseases of swine. He's worked in a variety of viruses from BSL2, BSL4 level, which is fun about. These efforts have led the development of swine models to evaluate the efficacy of vaccine prototypes, transmission for swine and zoonotic diseases, and more basic studies into immunology and pathogenesis for a variety of swine viruses. He's authored or co-authored hundreds of articles, abstracts, proceedings, book chapters, and has 5 patents. He's been sought for consultation by individuals and regulatory agencies in 17 foreign countries and been invited to make keynote addresses at 22 international conferences outside of the U.S. And best of all, he's had the pleasure of hosting 16 visiting scientists from 12 foreign countries.
Thank you, Rachel. Let's see, before I forget a couple of things, one is Mark talked about some of the, if you will, discoveries that were made at NADC, and one of those, the second one he mentioned, was something he did. So shout back to him, and I guess you guys had some as well, I think. But anyway, what I wanted to start with is share with you some background of what we do at NADC, and then try to spin that into how it spins off into international relationships, and then perhaps how working with people, I think collectively as this, you guys as the State Department, I realize there's different groups here, but through our folks overseas, how can you help us and how can we help you? And I'm going to try to use 3 examples to go down that path. But first, I start off with a picture of the world, because when I come home from work, I always have, sometimes it's a few minutes, sometimes it's longer than a few minutes, where I decompress with my wonderful wife, and she somehow counsels me so I can go to work again the next day. And one day, I came home and I said, Secretary Vilsack, I disagree with what he said today. My wife said, oh, what? And I said, well, his strategy for the Department of Agriculture was to feed 9 billion people in 2050, and that was the goal for the USDA. And I said to my wife, I disagree, because we have 7 billion people now, and we don't get along. What are we going to do when there's 9 billion people? It's misguided. And my wife told me, she goes, well, there's folks in the State Department. They'll figure out how to make 9 billion people get along. You need to figure out how to feed them. And so that's kind of a perspective where I'm at, is if you can make people get along, we'll try to figure out how to feed them. So with that, Mark had how do we respond to questions, and one thing I say to people as well, we're going to discover, and what we discover, we're going to try to understand what it is, and then we're going to apply that knowledge. So those are my little key themes that I'll try to go through. I'm going to touch on 3 viruses, as I said. One is some current work that we're doing. This is a virus that was first identified about 25 years ago, and it was not clear what it really meant to the livestock industry if something was found only in North America. And it was just a curiosity. And it was a virus that was thought to cause vesicular lesions. Now, if you do livestock work, you're going to hear about foot and mouth disease. Foot and mouth disease virus causes a vesicular lesion, which is like a blister. And so I have a couple of images, because if you're going to be around the Department of Agriculture, this is a big thing. And this is what people talk about. Well, it so happens that we were able to get some recent isolates and reproduce the disease for the first time in swine. And you can see on the hoof, there's this raised area here. And this is an area that'll kind of puff up a little bit, it'll be fluid-filled, and it'll slough off, and it can cause a lameness. It doesn't cause severe disease, but it causes lameness. The problem is it looks like foot and mouth disease. And there's a picture on the snout of the pig. You might appreciate this kind of little lump. That's another vesicle that's formed. And when people see that, they think immediately we have a foot and mouth disease outbreak, which for a country that does not have that virus, it's a disaster economically. Okay, so what I'm showing here is a graph that I think you can kind of see, and there's some peaks and troughs to it. Well, this starts in July of 2015. So in July of 2015, there were 2 or 3 cases of a vesicular-like disease, which made everybody immediately concerned in the United States that we're having an outbreak of foot and mouth disease in several states at the same time, which, again, disaster is not a big enough word for it. Well, it turns out that it looked like Seneca virus A was involved with that. And so we got materials from those animals and reproduced the disease and said, yes, we think that's what that is. And so that was interesting. But the challenge is every time something like that happens, the alarm sounds is this foot and mouth disease. And so we're trying to sort out how to deal with that. And what I'm trying to show here is that it kind of petered out and dropped off into the winter of 2015, and we thought maybe it had gone away. And it came back in 16, and now here we are in 17. And so it's a disease that we need to sort out. Are we going to try to apply our knowledge, and how are we going to control it? Because we can't go on the way it is, in my opinion. And so what's interesting is the disease really doesn't cause a lot of problems in the animal's health, but what it does is it triggers the alarms for foot and mouth disease. So what you might be able to appreciate on this slide, these are carcasses that would be at a slaughter plant. And in Iowa, there's a lot of pigs, And so every day, there's probably 150,000 swine that are slaughtered, something on that order. Near Ames is a slaughter plant that slaughters 21,000 pigs a day. A tremendous number, a tremendous logistical challenge to do that. Well, when the vesicular lesions, so when the vesicles are seen, the line immediately stops. And we have to figure out where those animals came from. Does the farm of origin have a problem with vesicular disease or not? The plant has to be clean, and it's a big issue, because if you just started in the morning, you've got 21,000 pigs standing there, and what are you going to do with them? Well, first of all, you have to take samples, and the way this was going in 2015 is that if that plant was in Iowa, samples had to be shipped to our sister laboratory in Plum Island to be tested and proven that they were negative for foot and mouth disease virus. Once the negative test was completed, then that plant could start up again. This process at best would take at least 2 days. So in the interim, then, you've got the next day's production to go to the slaughter plant standing in a barn, which means the next pigs can't go in there, and all of a sudden you have a problem that affects hundreds of thousands of pigs, and it's a big challenge. And as I showed earlier, we looked at 150 cases in a year, and it's really a significant issue. So where we're at is trying to, part of our discover, understand, and apply, is demonstrating the disease, the pathogenesis. That's a big part of our work, is showing how a disease happens, and then we can try to figure out how do we treat that. If we understand the immune response, can we build vaccines and things like this, and then to move into control programs. So that is part of the Seneca virus story. The other part that becomes more of an international issue is that the virus that appeared in the United States in 2015 is very, very similar to a virus that's in Brazil that appeared there for the first time ever in 2014. So somewhere there's a parent to those viruses. We don't know if it was in Brazil, we don't know if it was in the United States, we don't know where it's at. But the story became more interesting because when you grow viruses, you have to use certain types of cell culture reagents, and those are derived from animal products. Well, one of those reagents is an enzyme called trypsin, and trypsin is actually harvested from the pancreas, an organ in the abdomen, from the pancreas of swine. So you have companies that will harvest the pancreas from slaughterhouses, and then they have to extract the trypsin from that, and it looks like, or at least it's possible, that during that process, the Seneca virus may have been extracted from an animal somewhere. And then that process was pushed into using cell culture reagents, and then you have the potential perhaps to contaminate vaccines or something along those lines. So it's not quite clear what's going on, but it looks like there has been some type of international movement of a virus, and it could be related to products that would be used to grow cell cultures, and that could be raw products, just a big truckload of frozen pig pancreases, for example. So there's this movement of materials that I don't understand, but there's a movement of materials that we have to pay attention to from the United States perspective, but certainly through all of our other partners in the world. second virus story and international adventures. So 2009, I'm sure you can recall that we had an H1N1 influenza pandemic. A unique virus entered into the human population. And it, fortunately, was not very pathogenic. It didn't cause massive amounts of death, but it was a new, unique virus. For a number of years, since the early 80s, there was this hypothesis called the mixing vessel hypothesis. And in this is the idea that swine are susceptible to infection with avian and human influenza viruses, which is true. Those viruses could reassort and they could develop a new virus, which means they mix together and a new virus is born from that. And that's a true statement. And then the swine could be shed, and that virus that's shed might be infectious for people. And so that was a concern that you could have birds and pigs, perhaps even human viruses mixing, making up a new virus that could come back and cause big problems for people. Well, that's essentially what happened somewhere before 2009. The virus somehow was constructed, if you will, or reassorted through avian and swine and human viruses, and it was first developing up in Mexico. That's where it was recognized, and then spread throughout the world rapidly. So if you talk about any influenza work at all, you'll see images like this. And what I just bring this out for you to see is that what I want to share with you on this one is that this is a big loop of animals that are all susceptible to different types of influenza. The take-home message is that the natural reservoir in wildlife are waterfowl. So there's all kinds of combinations that exist in those birds. Also recently there's new ones that are being found in bats. So that's what that's for. But what we're interested here is the interaction between poultry and swine and humans. Because with the concentration of animals in livestock production, we now have thousands and thousands of pigs in the barn, and we have hundreds of thousands of chickens in the barn, for example. So these are big issues when you have viruses that pass back and forth among these animals, including people. Well, what really became interesting from 2009 is that there is a lot of virus that traffics from people into pigs. So it was just never appreciated before. And I show this for a couple of reasons. This says waterfowl flyways. This is North America. And what this is trying to show are pathways that wild birds take when they migrate north and then back south. And so there's the West Coast and East Coast and the Mississippi Flyway. So these are movements of birds. We saw recently in 2015 and the early part of 16, I believe, where we were having wild bird introductions of high-path avian influenza viruses into poultry in the United States. So clearly these things happen. And I put this up here because what became a big deal for the swine industry is what I call the human flyways. And so this is just one airline's map of where they fly. But we had people that were getting infected in Mexico, getting on planes, and the first case reports of their landing in Vancouver and going out to the pig farm because they had gone to Mexico for a week. So they go back to their pig farm and infect their pigs with human influenza. And that was some of the early cases of the quote-unquote swine flu. So there's lots of that. Once in the United States, there was different places that it just spread rapidly. And so since then, this has been looked at more and more by our groups at NADC and in collaborations with many other labs at CDC and et cetera. But what I want to show on this is I think you can see that there's something that kind of looks like little branches that are going along, and there's different colors. And the point of that is that this is genetic maps of viruses. And over time, you expect them to change a little bit as they mutate, and that's referred to more of a drift. And what you'll see are examples like this where there's unique shifts in the genetics. And so this represents an introduction of a new virus from somewhere. And this paper by Nelson and Vincent colleagues at the lab, they demonstrate here where these are human introductions. And so what happens then is a virus jumps back from people into pigs, and it gets established, and this represents a new path, a new lineage of virus. And so that's one thing for swine, because it can cause them some problems. The other is will these viruses that now drift, will they drift enough that they can go back to people and cause a problem? So that's a question yet to be answered. This is some areas of work that we're working on. And so again, it's back to the tried and true. We do a lot of pathogenesis work, so we need to understand, in the case of influenza, what these different viruses are doing in pigs. We do a lot of work in that area. And this area here I bring up is the risk of influenza in pork. So in 2009, we became much more involved with international relations, if you will, because at that time Russia was leading the pack, and they said, we don't want your pork from those pigs to the United States because they may have pandemic virus in it, so we're going to block the import of your pork. And fair enough, it was a good, legitimate question, and what we had was a good body of work that we could bring to the table and say, this is why we believe it's a negligible risk, it's not a problem. And we were able to build that case, and we at the lab and others would push the case up to whoever does the trade negotiations that I talked to on the phone, and then they would talk to their Russian counterparts, and although it took a little while to figure it out, the ban was lifted. And so the importance of that from an industry aspect is that while the ban was in place, all the other countries in the world said, we're gonna do what Russia's doing. That's probably a good idea. And so once we could get Russia to lift that ban, it opened up the market to everybody else. And there's estimates where during the ban, it was costing the U.S. pork producers about $1.5 billion they lost in equity in their farms. And we feel that eventually the ban would have been lifted, and so there's calculations that are made that because maybe it got lifted early, maybe we saved $500 million. And so those are some opportunities for us at the bench level to take our work and work it up the tree and to work on some of these questions that come and go all the time, at least the questions that have scientific answers to them. And so what's nice about the meeting that Mark and I just went to is when we interact with the chief veterinary officers of different countries, they have an impression of us. They may like us or they may not, but they have an impression of us, and that personal relationship is very helpful, I think, as well, when it gets to back and forth on talking about a lot of science, because when it's moving fast in this area, we weren't dealing with unpublished work. And so in theory, it would be published work and refereed, but we're dealing with unpublished work, and the relationship with our counterparts is what we're hoping for. So that's something that I think is hard to get that message out, but it's something that was important for us and was working through folks here at the location. Okay, a third testimony here. So porcine epidemic diarrhea virus. As you can guess, it's a virus that causes diarrhea in pigs. And what these are pictures of is, this is an image that I stole from the USDA APHIS report. But what's in this picture is a big bag. And I never knew anything like this existed because I never paid attention. But apparently, a lot of places move materials in these bags. And in China, these bags will be used to load in organic soybeans, because in the United States, there's people that like to feed organic soybeans to pigs as part of an organic pig raising project. Sounds great. The issue can become is when those materials that you're buying have been dried, and there's examples of this where they may be dried out on a road, and then that dried grain is now ready to ship, and so you scrape it back up and you put it in the bag. Well, all the material that's on the road gets scraped up with your grain. And if you put that in a bag, you might guess, that could contain a virus that's porcine epidemic disease, epidemic diarrhea virus. And I say that because in 2013, the first case of PEDV occurred in the United States, and the virus was essentially identical to one in China. And so the question was, how is this possible? How can you get a virus that seems to be identical in one country into another one? It's possible that it could have come in a shipment, or more than one shipment, of materials, of feedstuffs that came to the United States. Of course, it gets ground up, and it was fed to a pig, and it could be infectious. Work not done by us, but by others, some very good work, can demonstrate that you can treat different types of feed materials similar to how this material would be treated, and the virus in this case does survive, and it is infectious. So it's very suggestive that this was a route. So here we have another example of these international movements of products that, at least for me, I never would have dreamed that it would be an issue, but it can be. And so again, there's relationships between us and the USDA on the research side, and you guys at the embassy side of helping sort these things out, and everybody else. I have no idea how many people are involved with something like that. I show this because the virus, the PEDV, when it hit in the spring, which means there's a 6-month production cycle to a pig. So if the little baby dies from diarrhea, which is what happens with PEDV, then 6 months later, that pig's not going to market, it's gone. And what happened in the United States, close to 10% of the piglets died in about 90 days. And so that translated into what's shown on this graph is this dip between the red and the blue. And so that was a significant issue for people that lost pigs. And interestingly, as you might guess, it was a great thing for people that didn't, because the price of pork went up. So a lot of the agricultural issues, there are always a winner and there's always a loser. And I don't know how you make that different. But I show that because it was a very dramatic loss, and interestingly, PEDV has quieted down a lot. And so I put up my 3 things. So I said, discover part. Well, we had, and you, I guess, at 2013 we had a sequestration. So we had money problems. So what we got to do is watch everybody else make the discovery. But we tried to understand what we can do and how we could contribute. In 2014, we started getting some funds in to direct towards the PEDV research, and we went into some longer-term projects, so more into herd immunity and things like this. And so that's how we've been trying to approach the PEDV story. Here's my favorite set of slides, which I don't know if anybody likes. But I think that we think sometimes we can be really smart about stuff, and we have all these plans that we draw out for 5-year projects. Well, what I show here is it took Mother Nature about 50 million years to make a pig. And then it took mankind about 5,000 years to domesticate swine. So we take that wild pig, and now we realize the value of that. And then really, it's only taken about 50 years to do what I call to industrialize swine production, where it is like today, and where it is developing like Russia as we speak. And so we've now gone to this massive production of pork, and it takes Mother Nature hours to make a new virus. So I'm blessed, if you will, in an area of study that something always new is coming, and it's always something. And I can tell you, I don't know what the future is. It's just going to be different. And so we'll be talking again, and it's going to be about another virus that affects pigs somehow, someday. So that's my buzz. So thank you. And if you have time for a few questions, I think we have a few minutes. Go from there.
One question? Full distribution. How many countries registered?
So the question is Seneca virus A, that I just spoke of in the first part. What's going on with that in other countries? So in Brazil, we're not reporting much about it. It was first reported in 2014, so it's relatively quiet. In the United States, in 2015, it was emerging for us. It's, I don't know if it's going to bubble up again, but maybe another, like last year where there was 100 to 150 cases. And so, if that is what's going to happen, the USDA is trying to come to grips with that. In 2016, they started changing the rules for some of the foot-and-mouth disease diagnosis. So the state laboratories can do the preliminary exam, and the material still goes to Plum Island. They have to do the preliminary. So I don't know what this year's going to be for Seneca virus in the U.S. China has reported Seneca virus. It's a little interesting in China because the report that I just saw, they reported where they had viruses that were very, very similar to the viruses that are in Brazil and the United States. But they also had a group of viruses that are distant cousins. So it would suggest that they've had their own virus circulating there for a while. And what this common virus is, and where it's coming from, or where it went, how it did that, is yet to be determined. So no other countries are really reporting it.
And the diagnostics is a DNA or?
So the diagnostics is a PCR, and so it's very easy to do the diagnostic test. And in our pathogenesis work, we can show that there's a virulence, so the virus is in the blood for about a week. And the vesicles that will form, they're a very high concentration virus that will be in the fluid that's in that blister. So those are easy to detect. You can find an antibody that develops by about 10 days. And so the diagnostic methods are there. I think if people looked and they got negative results, I would believe them. On the same token, they may look and find that they have positive results because you can get some clinical infections with this virus.
Actually, the second question is sort of amusement for me, because I thought about influenza one or only terrestrial mammal, and I said birds, but actually on the diagram it was whales and seals. So how this influenza virus, in sea mammals, any connections to humans?
I'm not aware of any humans that get infected with viruses that would be like in a seal or a whale. They're slightly different viruses, and then exactly how they get infected, it seems like it has to be water's contaminated. Of course, they live in water, but the water's contaminated. And yeah, it's amazing, absolutely amazing how that can happen.
About last line, Mother Nature allows to make a new virus. Maybe it is the way for Mother Nature to create new species, and you just deteriorate this process.
And what, the process?
You deteriorate process of creation new life, new species by Mother Nature, because Mother Nature maybe it's just way create no life, new create new virus every hours, and you deteriorate process of creation new species by Mother Nature.
I think we're on the same page, and what that is that the questions I have are: do the concentrated farming of animals create a new ecology?
How?
A new environment.
A new
environment. And I think that's a true statement, but I also think we need to have concentrated feeding of animals because I'm supposed to help feed 9 billion people. And so, you have to have that, but you have to realize with that maybe some difficulties.
Is possible mutations, mutants of that viruses, genetic mutations?
You bet.
We assume genetic mutations are probably the driving force. Yes. And some of that could be differences in the environments or something from the host. But